Hello, and welcome to another episode of Walking Digital Corridors, the show where we explore the art and science of creating meaningful conversations in today's digital world. I'm your host, Alex Abbott, otherwise known as the Bearded Sales Guy, and I couldn't be more excited to have you with us today. If you've been wondering how to manage your time effectively on LinkedIn while driving real sales results, then this is the episode for you. But before we get into that, Jordan, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure thing. Hello, everyone. I am Jordan Abbott, also known as the sales poet or the Weird Al Yankovic of sales, mainly because I like telling sales stories in outside of the box ways, one of which being via parody music videos.
And a good couple of videos they have been in recent times.
Indeed.
And we'll get onto that with the topic that we're tackling today. So joining me today is someone who truly needs no introduction in the world of social selling and revenue growth, Alex Boyd. Alex is the founder of Aware, a cutting-edge platform revolutionizing how salespeople engage on LinkedIn. He's also the CEO of Revenue Zen, a top-ranked B2B growth agency specializing in strategies that deliver high ROI for SaaS and professional services companies. Alex has spent over a decade mastering sales and marketing tactics from demand generation to social selling, and his work has helped businesses unlock significant revenue growth. Today, he's here to share practical strategies for LinkedIn engagement, social selling, and using tools like his very own Aware to supercharge your sales process. So with that, let's welcome Mr. Alex Boyd. Great to have you.
Thanks. Great intro. It's wonderful to be here.
It's great. It's great to have you. I'm really looking forward to today's session. So to kick us off, can you tell us a little bit about Aware and how you got to creating Aware? And did Aware come first, or was it B2B revenue growth before Aware?
Well, first it was cold calling on a manual. Well, calling semi-warm inbound leads on a manual phone 80 times a day for a few years. And then it was 5 inbound demos a day, handling that as an AE for a few years. And it was sales leadership and cold email. And then finally it was going to go out on my own with sales consulting. That became lead gen. That became outsourced SDR as a service. The content marketing arm sprung up, grew like a weed, and then it was the whole thing. And then it was just the B2B SEO. And then when I was doing that, LinkedIn was such a huge part of the way I was growing that agency, which I'm actually no longer the CEO of, but still a shareholder. Thanks though. I appreciate the legacy title. And so Aware was kind of born from, well, what are we doing to grow headline and brand revenue so much? And then also the corollary is, well, it's kind of taking a lot of work and annoying just stuff to do it all. And that's kind of where the SaaS came in. Is you could do it with much more effort in the spreadsheet, but that's kind of, to me, like the onus for building a tool is, well, what if I don't want to do much more effort in a spreadsheet than I otherwise could? So there we were with Aware. And then this is actually the second version of Aware. The first version was like a different thing entirely. And then we had to burn it to the ground after 2.5 years.
Right.
And then create a whole new version. So that's how we got to this point. Was lots of trial and error, lots of experience, and doing it every day. I mean, I still do this every day in terms of like what we're talking about of selling on LinkedIn.
Yeah. And maybe we can come to sort of what changed between version 1 and version 2 of Aware a bit later. But in terms of the journey that you've been on, it feels somewhat similar to the journey that both Jordan and I have been on. We're not quite there yet, though, in terms of where you are, but it certainly feels like we're playing in exactly the same playground. For a while, we've thought that the traditional sales and marketing funnel is broken. Traditional being that sort of, you know, let's think about B2B sales and marketing as, marketing being that, content engine, create insight, drive awareness, drive engagement, and pour leads in the top of the funnel, which
Yeah.
maybe worked between, I don't know, 2005, 2000 and, to about 2015. Yeah. Drinks. There we go. And then for 5 years or more, companies were twisting and turning to extract as much as they could out of that funnel, as they tried to make the top of the funnel wider, but the bottom of the funnel was just getting smaller and smaller. Cost of acquisition was increasing. Have you reached a point where you feel, okay, that traditional funnel is broken and something radically different is required, or are you somewhere in the middle?
Yeah, I think, well, I was operating in the traditional funnel at the peak of it. I mean, when I was a head of sales at my last company, we were mostly inbound driven, and then we got an order to just sort of scale rapidly. Um, I mean, frankly, kind of what happened was the CEO requested I hire more salespeople than I thought the math justified, and so we needed some more stuff to give them. And so an SDR team was built, and we were not the earliest ones, but some of the earliest crop to really turn the crank up on high volume cold email at scale. Like this was when Apollo was still Zen Prospect. This is when Datanyze was one of the big players in the game, and they couldn't even give you that like point click download thing. And we were like, no. We need to give our team tens of thousands of leads per week without selecting each one by hand. They were like, and then Apollo, then Zen Prospect was like, no, we can do that. And it was this whole revolutionary thing, right? This was 2015, right? So about 10 years ago. So yeah, we were sending tens of thousands of emails a month, and then it was creating 200 appointments a month, and then started to, it was still working, but by 2019 or so, when I was like in the part of the outsource SDR business, it started to get just less good, started to work less well. Now I'm an investor in an outbound agency that uses Clay and does really cool like signal-based like small batch campaigns. Are really smart about it, and are doing really good work and for themselves and their clients. But before, pretty much any monkey with a typewriter and a Apollo account could generate a bunch of appointments. And now this segment of people who could do that is much smaller because it takes that much more skill, technical and strategic, to break into an inbox and then have your message even be read, let alone acted on. So yeah, I never thought it was good. It used to kind of work. I just never liked it. I knew it was spammy, but I was just like, this is what I'm being asked to do. So I'm gonna figure it out. We did.
Yeah.
It was never the right way to do it in the true sense of that word.
Yeah. So for those salespeople listening today, who are perhaps, some of which are those that you describe as highly skilled and can generate meetings with their target audience, but for most, I think they're struggling to do that, and they're stuck in this world of, well, I want to automate because I don't have the time to prospect, but the automation isn't delivering the number of conversations, the level of engagement that I need with my target audience. And so I'm kind of stuck in the middle. As we start to look at what you think salespeople should be considering in order to create more conversations with their target audience, what are some of the things that you can share with them?
Good question. And the phrasing of it is, I think, part of the issue, not from you, but with the way that people usually ask it. So maybe let's spend some time on, I don't have time to prospect. I love that. There's two versions of answering this. On the one hand, bullshit, you don't. What else are you doing? Like if you are just a salesperson and what else could possibly be more important? Now, if you're hitting your quota and you're doing well at your job, then why do you need to prospect? Keep doing what you're doing. I'm not talking to you, right? But if you're just saying I don't intend to prospect, well, what could be more important? So Yes, you do. And then the automation is probably making the problem worse. Essentially by not relying in this case more on phone, voice, things that can't be automated, which so your prospects know are not automated in saturation. Um, by not doing those things, you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot and putting your worst foot forward with prospect. All right, that's the first answer. That's kind of like my tech sales leadership answer. It's fine. If this is a team of people who are um, salespeople, but then I posted about this recently, and I'm one of these different kind of classes salespeople, where I never really thought of myself as a salesperson. Like my first job, I tried to get into the research team, the client services team, and they just didn't have openings. So I've been on this track kind of by accident. I think if you're in sales and you're not doing as well as you should, and you can't really see a way out of it, and you think the only answer is to automate more, um, I would suggest taking a few steps back and looking at your career as a business person. Um, so if you are in, let's say you're selling, Martech, fine. Pick anything it is, renewable energy, doesn't matter. Whatever the thing is that you're selling. Are you optimizing for sales skills, or do you have enough of those? Maybe you should optimize for industry skills. Should you simply build in the industry you are, rather than saying, I'm a sales rep, I'm going to sell whatever I need to sell? And the huge benefit of specializing in a subject matter, in an industry, in a customer base with the people who are doing that is you're now kind of a player in that industry. Whereas if you are simply a hired gun salesperson who's going to sell whatever you could sell, well, you have no business doing things like personal branding, LinkedIn, you going to trade shows, or just sort of your general knowledge level will never really go too high. And some people make sell anything across all industries work for them. That's cool. But if you are a business person who happens to be currently in a sales role, now your career, let's say you're, in MarTech, now you can go from speaker to entrepreneur to agency to seller to partnerships person, but you're staying within kind of MarTech marketing, blah, blah, blah. And then you meander your way out. I started in brokerage, went into, tweaked that into accounting services and tax, took my sales skills and put it into the same sort of industry, but then lead gen. And it's just, I've incrementally changed my career as I've learned new things. What that's allowed me to do, which I recommend to other salespeople, is to build a brand within an industry. And if you are only selling and just automating your prospecting, you have no business doing that. It's not going to work for you. So if you really don't find prospect because you're busy building a revenue generating valuable brand, the only way to do that and to justify that choice is to know what you're talking about in that industry. So are you a cybersecurity expert, or are you simply an AE at a company that happens to sell cybersecurity, and then you're sort of fly by night after that? And yes, if you have no industry expertise, maybe you're going to have to kind of figure it out and get clever with your automations and cross your fingers and hope for the best. But if you think that nobody else is going to do the work for you and you take matters into your own hands, then you need to stop being intellectually lazy. This is sounding harsh. Okay, just continuing with the harsh train of thought. Is if you're just not ready to do the mental work to learn what it is you're selling, just do it. Like, make the choice to commit to learning that, and then you can start feeling more authentic doing things like, building a LinkedIn presence, going on podcasts, so on and so forth. Because then it's worth doing. So we really have to unpack the I don't have time to prospects thing into, well, why? Is that true? Is that just an excuse? Or is that actually true? Because I don't have time to prospect because I'm doing other things that are much more effective than prospect. But if you can't say that about your own career, then, well, you do have time to prospect. Or you should learn to do what I'm doing. Those are your choices, basically. So it's a very common excuse, as you probably hear often. You probably have, it's like, well, I do think you have time to prospect. If not, what else are you going to be doing? I hope there's a good answer to that.
Yeah. And maybe, certainly from experienced salespeople that perhaps have felt at one point in their career they've graduated away from prospecting. I think the harsh truth of the world that we live in today is that even if you do have a volume of pipeline, because you're lucky enough to be in that position, then what we're talking about in terms of developing your personal brand and, quote unquote, social selling. I know that means different things to different people. It's still important to do that for stakeholder management, for example, if you're managing deals. But just kind of coming back to, what you were saying earlier, I think, Jordan, you've done a really good job at sort of, developing your brand as the sales poet within B2B sales industry. Can you relate to some of the things that Alex was saying there?
Yeah, definitely. I think the thing that stood out was when you were talking about the passion piece, right? Um, and there's a quote that I think we both love, Alex Abbott, that is, which was probably going to butcher it now. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. If what you're doing isn't something you genuinely care about, why should your prospects care? Right? If there's a larger issue at play, maybe you need to change industries or change organizations, right? Because at the end of the day, we spend a huge amount of our day working. Do you want to be doing it at a place where you're not really bought in? Yeah, okay, the paycheck may justify it in some cases, but it's that balancing act, right?
Yeah, I think for some of the work that I'm doing, training others, to walk digital corridors, develop their personal brand, activate their network, create content that makes them stand out and look different, encourage their audience to walk towards them. That first step is that personal brand, identifying what you want to be known for. And yeah, there might be 3 to 5 topics that you can think of that are important to your personal brand. I encourage participants to, have maybe 2 or 3 of those as professional, but have at least 1 or 2 that are more personal, more aligned to your values and beliefs, so you can get a real sense of purpose from that, and then create content off the back of that is therefore then easier to do because you're doing it about topics that really mean something to you.
Yeah, I think that's great. Do you ever? So I was training a couple hundred sales reps in September, on site in Arlington, Virginia, and I wonder if you get the same excuse in your training work. I rarely do training anymore. So this is more rare, but I think it comes up often. They said it's cringy to be on LinkedIn. Not everyone. Some people said that.
Got to lean into it.
Sure, and that's one response. But is that commonly heard as well?
Uncomfortable. I don't think I've heard the word cringy yet, but certainly, certainly there is a percentage of people that definitely feel uncomfortable. Actually, it's coming to mind now. There was one guy that was saying, I see my CEO taking selfies when he's out and about, and they get a ton of engagement. I can't bring myself to take a selfie. Eventually did, but I think if I'd asked him, does it make you feel cringy, he would have said yes.
Yeah. I've been thinking about why that is, because we can't talk about aware, we can't talk about personal branding or anything until we unpack like why people think it's cringy. And the same people who are happy who love like kind of the absurd, weird, like TikTok style stuff. It's like, it's great. Like I'll consume Nutty Butter TikTok, but it's like not that much. And also it's like if all you can be is ironic, I think there's something going on beneath the surface when you have that belief about money and success. Because if you can't bring yourself to take LinkedIn seriously, you're kind of saying, I don't want to draw attention to myself and the fact that I want some level of commercial success.
Yeah.
And like, I can't sell you aware or do anything else until we figure out, well, why do you think that? And that's a broader conversation. But once you just are like you said, lean into it, it's just like, if I'm going to lean into the cringe, just like it's the recognition that it's a game and that you've just decided to play it. You stop caring what people think. When you're so wrapped up in caring what people think because you're worried they might think you are taking your career seriously, when you say it out loud, it sounds kind of silly, but that's that inner dialogue they're going through. And you see people break free of that, and suddenly they're, doing well on LinkedIn and so forth. But it's because they made that inner decision to stop caring that people might think that they're taking the career seriously, which is like, what else are you to do? Like not. Uh, it's so tread this weird middle line where you like kind of do only privately but don't, and you have all this weird feelings that you keep below the surface. Not going to make for a great aligned career or one that makes too much money. Um, so I think that's why people often think it's uncomfortable or cringy. Obviously, yeah, seeing your CEO taking a selfie. What else could possibly be going on inside you? Why else would you be annoyed by that behavior? Like obviously your CEO wants the company to grow. He's not doing it for the attention, probably. Um, but that underlies a lot of these things. Right. So we can say, take it seriously, have passion, grow your personal brand. But if they have an underlying belief that, it's wrong to make money and grow in your career, um, whatever tradition or family system, whatever else created that belief doesn't really matter. The fact is that it's some version of that is there. You need to think about why that is. Um, and break, yeah.
It's an important, really important topic. Probably one that needs its own podcast discussion.
Yeah.
Because we typically see 20% of people that go through our program sitting in that bucket of, we would call it refusal, just not willing to do it for whatever reason. And, there could be something at play there that we just don't know why. It could be a whole host of things, right? That are quite personal and even private to that individual.
Exactly.
So thinking that you can help them come out of that to do social selling is probably not a battle worth having.
It's not your business, literally.
Yeah. And then there's the 60% in the middle, 20% at the top that just run with it, 60% in the middle that one way or another, with the right level of support, we can get them there. But let's switch gears a little here and get into some of the crux of Aware. I do want to sort of dig into Aware a little bit. There's many tools out there, and it's getting somewhat distracting with the number of tools, particularly the AI-based, AI-driven commenting tools.
Yes.
You want every single week. Like what's your view on that first? And then secondly, perhaps we can then explore what sets Aware apart from some of the other tools out there.
Well, it took me a long time to even agree to build AI commenting into Aware because I just thought it sucked so much. But there was enough requests for it that I had to make that same call I was talking about earlier, where I said, am I going to take my career seriously in this? And me saying, shake my fist, and you shouldn't use AI for commenting. And it was like, but we have this much MRR that we could get if we just had it. And I was like, you know what? Fine. Do it. We'll build it. It's easy. Build it in the afternoon, pretty much. Launched it in there, and now it's there. But we don't lean on that. And we started as an engagement feed builder because, well, the main issue with, I think, social selling and so forth is that it becomes social media where you get wrapped into the scrolling and the distraction and all those things that aren't actually focus on selling and building your career, as we've been talking about. And so the kind of the capstone feature of Aware, apart from the analytics and the reporting, is this ability to build these custom and dynamic and targeted engagement feeds, which sort of keep you on task, right? You load your 200 top active prospects into a list, and now you just have to use the Aware list. You don't have to look for them, refine them, or do 5 clicks each on some of the LinkedIn tools to get them. Just makes it easier to do things like that. Or we now have post scheduling. We now have CRM sync, a bunch of other stuff that's really useful. But the one we launched with is that kind of engagement feeds feature in the analytics. Okay, so let's talk about AI commenting. What's the point of commenting? And then what happens when you do an AI comment? Okay, so when I comment on somebody's post, a few things are happening. One, the post author is probably seeing it, and then thinking something about me. We'll come back to that. The other people who view the post and comment on the post are also seeing that, and again, concluding something about me, the person who wrote the comment. And finally, the comment is showing up as its own entry in the feed, right? So like the post, Alex's comment on the post is a feed entry. It's a feed card. And then people are seeing that and looking at what I said on whose post, and they're making some sort of, hardwired kind of animal brain judgment about what Alex knows, what he's good at, who he knows. Interesting. And what their relationship seems to be. None of that matters unless the people who are viewing this make some conclusion about me and what I said that leads to my business growing. So when you put AI in the mix, you stop that process from happening in its tracks. And so when you leave 1,000 comments with AI, you've had no effect or a slightly negative effect on tens of thousands of people 1,000 times. And that's worse than nothing. I'd rather have you say nothing at all.
Yeah.
There are some edge cases. Non-native English speakers who need to translate their comment into English or whatever language you're speaking, right? Like translation is a great use case for AI. Love it. You're really a terrible writer and you just need something to clean up your thoughts. Okay, fair as a crutch. Some sort of like keyboard typing disability, right? There's a lot of edge cases that make that really good. But just your average everyday person who does not want to think about the post and literally react to it themselves, that is a terrible use case for AI because you're just scaling neutral to bad. And if you're scaling an average -1% 1,000 times, that's gonna add up. And you're gonna reduce the quality of a personal brand because it's not the goal is not to leave 1,000 comments and then revenue flows into your lap. What do you think is happening in the middle, right? You leave a bunch of comments and then people think something about the person who wrote the comments and the post they were written on, and they think that person really understands my problems, or they can really help me with this problem I have. They seem to be an expert. They seem to know all the right people. There's all these conclusions they need to draw. And again, if you just use AI to blast out generic stuff, the vast majority of them, unless you're like lucky with the GPT that happens to work for you in some case, it's not going to do that. Some people say, well, what if I can train AI on, all of my relationships, everything I say, how I talk? Yeah, great. I mean, that gets around some of that. It might make it awkward if someone references a comment you made in their post and you don't remember it. You don't remember what they said. It's that would be like scaling a snapshot of who you were and who you knew at one time rather than reflecting it authentically over time. So there's no version of AI commenting that really captures what you need it to do. It's at best 20% as good as a real comment, and at worst, -5% as good as an actual comment. But the AI commenting tools are they're all bogus for that reason, and they go at the human desire to take shortcuts to avoid real work, which that's a thing. We want to go to the blueberries that are over there instead of the blueberries that are across the river. That's the AI commenting tool. It's real simple, and it doesn't work in this case. It works with blueberries. It doesn't work in this case. So why they sell reasonably well. That's my rant on AI comments. I sell that as a feature. I don't use it. I never use it myself. Yeah, that's again that's the spicy take, but it's the very real take.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think there's especially for those primary stakeholders, if you've made the effort to create a list of people that you want to be building credibility with and ultimately developing a trust-based relationship, the comment needs to be thoughtful, and when there's a response, there needs to be some sort of interaction. Like, it needs to be clear that there's a human there. I've been on the end of those comments that, and I'm not naming any names, but there's one in particular that will comment regularly, and I'll engage in the conversation in the comments because I feel like commenting it's social networking. It's a form of network, but then nothing comes back, and it's like, okay, this has got the AI thing.
Yeah, I mean, think of it as like a trade show. The AI comment is like walking up to somebody who just gave a speech, and then saying something kind of generic, and they say, well, it's kind of weird, but I'll respond to it. They respond to it, and then you walk away.
Yeah.
It's like, that was weird, like, A, that guy was weird, and also he walked away. Like, what was the deal with that? I don't like that person. Never even give them my money. That creeps me out. That's kind of what you're doing when you leave an AI comment. Just think of it in trade show form. It becomes way clearer.
Yeah. 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 Although I have to admit, I do have used and do use AI if I'm struggling with something thoughtful to say based on perhaps a topic or a relatively long post, and I'll give ChatGPT the content and a quite a specific prompt as to what I'm looking for, and it'll either come up with something great, which not the case most times, or at least give me something that will then get my own creative juices flowing. You know,
And that's fine. I mean, yeah, I tend to just skip those posts, but if you need to put in the effort to look for it, you put in the effort. You understand what you're commenting. If the person responds, you're probably going to respond to them. Like all the things that make it. I don't care who generated the text. There are only 26 letters in the alphabet. It does not matter to me whether a human or an AI wrote those. What matters is all the things around it. Did you actually ingest what was being said? Do you know the person? And well, you don't have to know them, but are you going to respond when they respond? The typing of the text is not the important point. It's all the things around it with the relationships and the social part of it. I'm not an AI Luddite. I don't have anything against AI for that use case. What I have against is saying weird nonsense things that you never actually saw yourself on someone's post you don't know, and then not responding, and then thinking that's a good idea. Like that whole thing is just, it takes the shortcut out of it and turns it into like, going to pick the poison blueberries that are close by instead of the good ones that are twice as far. That's basically what is happening. And what you described is not that. It's you're using it as a tool, which I think is great. I use ChatGPT every day. What is this vegetable I got in my farm CSA, and how do I cook it? Here's a picture. I need some code for this UI component. AI is great. But people miss the point where they just, press button, 1,000 comments go out, and they have no concept of what was done, what was said to whom, and all that stuff. That's where it really breaks down.
so that comes back to what we were talking about before in terms of that personal brand and that mindset, the importance of changing your mindset and
Yeah.
And the objective of being on social, right? What are you there for? What are you looking to achieve? If it's to be present, be authentic, build genuine connections and relationships with people, then apt as such, rather than just being present to hit a KPI. Oh, I've seen people in my network saying that you should make 40 comments a day, so I'm just going to do them.
Yeah. Checkbox.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And moving away from, email and phone is about volume, activity and volume, whereas in-person networking is about preparing and that quality of conversation, which LinkedIn is more like that, right? How you behave.
Got dipping in the mill. Let's do that.
Yeah, yeah. Cool. So, how do you recommend sales professionals prioritize engagement to make the most out of their limited time on LinkedIn, right? Because for many, that they don't have the time. They're still trying to come to terms with having to spend more time on LinkedIn. You often talk about, salespeople doing all they need to do with just 15 minutes a day.
Yeah. Some of the easy ideas that come to mind. If you have take your target account list and target contact list, filter by the ones that are active on LinkedIn. Maybe you have a sales navigator. Maybe you just toss them all into a layer, and we then show you which ones are active on LinkedIn. And then you have a list of the people who post at least once a month, if not once a week, on LinkedIn in your market. And you just kind of rapid fire comment on their posts. I don't mean automatically. I mean, like, we make it easy for you to kind of see, digest, and respond quickly. And then sync all of your comments to your CRM, Salesforce or HubSpot. And then so now you have both the quick version of the activity. So you kind of rip through all the posts that you're seeing, much faster than you could do on LinkedIn. You practice engaging thoughtfully but quickly. My trick for that is you pick one thing in their post to engage with, not the whole thing, but just one line, one idea. And so you kind of limit yourself. I'm not commenting on their entire career. I just picking on that one thing, and then I comment on that. And you can get it down to like 10 seconds per comment, which is not even with AI, just your own scan. That thing makes sense. Type a quick comment about it. I mean, we text all the time. We should be good at typing. It shouldn't take that long, right? So 10, 15 seconds per comment, allowing for some skipped posts. And it really does not take more than 10 minutes a day to do all the commenting you need to do to really engage with the target market, especially if that's all pushed to HubSpot or Salesforce. Now you have a record of what you're doing, and you can say that 10 minutes that I didn't make those 5 cold calls was spent engaging on my target market's posts or with influencers whom my target market and contacts look at. So that's probably the easiest use case, is just load the people you want to talk to into an aware list and engage with them quickly right from there in that, 10 minutes. Maybe you arrive at work 10 minutes early, or if you're working at home, make yourself a cup of tea and you do your comments, and you reward yourself with 5 TikToks once you've done your comments. I don't know, figure out what you have to do, but like, it does not have to be a long time. And honestly, if it is taking you more than 20 minutes a day, something is probably going wrong. Maybe you're obsessing about what to write in comments, in which case, dial it back, stop overthinking it. Maybe you don't know who's supposed to comment on, or where it can help you with that. Clean out your lists. Maybe you struggle with attribution. Not only do we allow you to export the exact text of all your comments and with whom, so you can always prove it, you can just sync it to CRM. Now, if you're spending an hour a day and it's like you're creating content, you're filming video, you're getting lots of engagement, you're DMing, love it, then you'll have the pipeline to show for it. But if it's not working, you're taking too long, don't pilot this with more than 50 minutes a day. You're going to burn out on it. So I recommend piloting it with small amount of time. You see a little bit of traction, you justify spending more time, and so on and so forth until, eventually, yeah, great. I mean, there are some days where I spend an hour and a half a day on LinkedIn because it's just like, I'm selling, I'm doing customer support, I'm creating content. I mean, it's working. It's like, that's the strategy. And we're building, enterprise value at high 5 to low 6 figures per month, doing it with a team of 2. So, I can justify that.
Yeah.
That's where it comes in.
So within Aware, then you look at the comments that you've made on the people's posts, or the posts they've engaged with, or is it the people's posts that you're tracking in the list? And then you can upload that into your CRM, the comments you've left.
Well, so that was just if you don't have Salesforce or HubSpot,
Okay.
you can CSV of all of your comments.
Right.
What you've written.
Yeah.
And all your posts, all your comments, people wanting the CSV of all our comments so they can train the AI on themselves. I was like, great. Let me know if it works. Have at it.
Yeah.
But yes, it's not. So actually, V1 of Aware, it was a very different product, but all it did was show you when your ICPs commented on certain people's posts that you specified. So you were specifying the influencers, the customers, the competitors. We had this dashboard where we showed you, hey, these 5 ICPs of yours commented or likes these posts. Don't need to get into why it burned out, but like, we built that too. It just people didn't take enough action on it, which is partly our fault, partly just how the sales behavior works. But yeah, what we do now is it's an engagement tool, and then you can export or sync everything that you did or that people did to your profile.
Yeah. Yeah. Is there a rule of thumb that you see, or an average that you see, in terms of a salesperson's territory, and then the percentage of that territory that they can see as being active on LinkedIn?
Well, it depends on who they're selling to. If you're selling to the founders of venture-backed tech companies, then 40% are going to have posted in the last 60 days. If you sell it to the managers of manufacturing companies, it's more like 3%. So that's the first layer. You can do this yourself and go into Sales Navigator and click industry, post that on LinkedIn, just divide the total number by, or the posted number by the total number, and just do that for every industry combination. painstaking work. I've done that. That's eye-opening. But then, yeah, there's enterprise versus SMB. So if you have 5,000 people in your market that you want to sell a $400 a month thing to, you're going to have to pick the influencers more than the prospects, or maybe the top, potential prospects. If you have 200 people you could possibly sell to, well, it's much easier. You put all 200 of them in there and you call it a day. I have spent most of my time as a salesperson in anything from SMB to mid-market. I have spent very little time selling 6 and 7 figure things to enterprises. But I've noticed that those people have, an easier time with their target account list build because they have it. It's very defined versus, any franchisor in the US was just too many, right? So building your list is trickier.
Yeah. And then, and I'm conscious of time, Jordan. If you've got anything, please jump in. But one more question before you do, and before we wrap up. But so we've defined who's active. Let's say it's 40% of the territory. Therefore, there's 60% of the territory that we know isn't active on LinkedIn. So they're not going to consume this social networking or be part of this social networking experience. But you could still DM them, right, if you wanted to. But we know, that's not super effective. But then you've got other initiatives. Perhaps there's a cold calling initiative. There are campaigns that include email. There are events that are trying to, invite, you're inviting people from that 60%. Do you have a view on what positive effect doing social selling will have on those other initiatives? Because people coming to the event, receiving your call, receiving already see you as a trusted authority in your industry.
That's a great question. And at that same training engagement a few months ago, their target market was legal and tax professional managers at law firms and tax law firms and tax preparation firms, like big ones.
Yeah.
I finished my 4th talk of the day. My voice was shot. And someone had recently asked a question, a young gun in the front of the audience. He said, well, CPAs don't use LinkedIn. So I don't really get it. Okay, you're right that they don't post, but they definitely do use LinkedIn. They're there to learn, and they're there to lurk. They're there for other reasons. They're watching. They're just not producing a lot of content. And the top rep in the back of the room came up to me afterward, older guy, obviously, more wisdom. He wasn't going to shout it out in front of everybody. He comes up and says, you know what? That person said that tax people don't use LinkedIn, but they definitely do. I use LinkedIn. I reach them. They're there. They want to learn and educate themselves, even if they're not posting a bunch of social media content. Thank you for your talk. And I said, appreciate you. I know you get it. And that is absolutely what happens, because every single industry is on LinkedIn. At least enough for you to make an impact. Like, more tech people are on LinkedIn, but there are tons of lawyers who use LinkedIn. They're just not all of them are posting. So when you post or when you engage with the content that they are looking at, you can reach them that way. You can reach enough of them that you can make an impact, and you go to that trade show and they say, oh yeah, I remember you, and you are more than a stranger. And just being more than a stranger, think about what that does for your sales process.
Yeah.
More than a stranger or even trusted, it's great. So yes, it's not just the DM hunting ground, as you said. And even if some industries are less on LinkedIn, there's always enough for you to make an impact. And it probably just isn't with engaging with their own posts the whole time, because, whatever, but just be smart about it, right? Go to the people that they're looking at and so forth. So that example I shared really illustrates the point of the people who have been in the industry for a while, who aren't job hoppers and industry hoppers. They get it, and they've built their brand on LinkedIn for that reason, targeting sane people because they're on there.
Yeah.
What I recommend salespeople do.
Yeah, indeed. I want to get to a percentage at some point, not today, of course, but I'm feeling like there's some sort of realistic assumption we could make that says, of the pipeline that's generated through other sources, there's a percentage of X that you're influencing that pipeline by as a result of developing your personal brand and all of the things that we've just talked about today?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to answer now, but at minimum, you're avoiding the stranger veto. Like at minimum, you're validating that they should continue the conversation with you instead of saying, this person does nothing on LinkedIn or the LinkedIn is weird, no, right? So you're at least getting past the potential no, if not positively influencing. And I mean, the vast majority of people are at least look at your LinkedIn and make sure you're not a crazy person. So yeah, I can't tell you, personal brand is moving the deal forward in every case, but it's at least not stopping the deal in the majority of it.
Yeah. And that in itself is enough.
Yeah, plenty. I mean, one $100,000 deal that decides, yeah, okay, we'll take that meeting because you don't seem crazy. That happens once every 2 years. I mean, your career do the math on your net worth growth from that one habit over 10 years. I mean, it's significant.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah.
Just on that point, again, conscious of time, does Aware sync profile visitors into the CRM?
Profile viewers?
Yeah.
Not yet.
Okay. Would be a way to start that calculation, right? Oh, I made this call on this day and I saw that they visited my profile, or I sent this email. They also visited my profile within this time span.
I agree. I have to track that anecdotally, but I think you're right. Like to do it at scale, if for people who don't believe it yet, it'd be helpful to have that pushed into there. But I've had that requested a number of times. It's just we're building fast enough on the list.
No.
Yeah. Brilliant. Jordan, thank you. Alex, thank you so much. It's been an excellent session. Not long enough. We'll have you back in the new year, I think, if you're up for it. Yeah. We didn't get into the differences between version 1 and version 2, and there's so much more to talk about.
That's 3.0. That's the After Dark one.
Yeah, indeed. Now, where can people find you if they want to learn more about you, learn more about Aware?
LinkedIn is the best place, always is, to direct traffic, ask questions, and figure out what I'm working on. I kind of centralize everything there. So linkedin.com/in/Alex C. Boyd.
Brilliant. Well, thank you again. Thank you everyone for joining, whoever's listening. Have a wonderful rest of week and Christmas ahead. See you next time. Take care.